Within Unreal Engine, we have access to procedural gradients that we can use as textures. In this module, we'll implement a linear gradient on our lighting to achieve a banded effect. Using the linear gradient allows us to set any number of bands that are any size or color on the level's lights. First, let's turn off our ppmm_graphic lights post-process material so that we go back to the default PBR lighting of the scene. And now within the same post-process folder, let's create a new material. ppmm_light color bands. Let's open it, set our material domain to post-process, and our blendable location to before tone mapping. Just like with our graphic lights post-process material, we're going to need to extract a light mask. So let's create a scene texture, and we'll set it to post-process input 0. This will be the base pass that will divide our base color by. So let's copy and paste and select our base color. Now let's create our divide node, and just like before, let's divide our final image by the base color to extract our lighting. Let's clamp it, and we're also going to need to only take grayscale information of the lighting. So let's grab a component mask, and let's remove the green vector so that we just have the red vector. And now if we plug this in and we hit save and apply the material to our array, we can see once again we have our light extracted. So now let's go back into this material and let's create a curve atlas row parameter. So let's type in the search box curve, and we'll see under parameters curve atlas row parameter. So let's just call this parameter curve, and let's plug our light mask into the curve time. The curve time is going to act as the placement of the curve. So our light is going to inform the curve of where it should render. In order for our curve atlas row parameter to work, we're going to need a curve and we're going to need an atlas. So let's go create those now. Let's minimize our material. In the root of the post-process folder, if we right-click and we go to miscellaneous, if we browse up to curve, we can select between 3 different curve types. So let's set our curve as a linear curve color and then say select. And now let's name it curve A. If I open this, I can see I have a graph that allows me to manipulate the RGB and alpha values along a curve. The right side of the graph is going to equal our light areas. The dark side of the graph is going to equal our shaded areas. Let's save and close it for now. The other thing we're going to need is a curve atlas. So if I right click and I go back to miscellaneous, directly into curve, I can see I have a curve atlas. Now the curve atlas is going to allow us, let's call it curve-atlas. The curve atlas is going to allow us to store our curves. We can have multiple curves. Right here under curves, I see I have gradient curves. If I click this plus button, I now can select from any number of curves that I have created. Let's select curve A when it shows up in this menu when we left click and apply it to our curve atlas and then hit save. So back in my material where I have the option to place a curve, let's expand this menu and let's apply our new curve. Where we have an atlas, let's apply our curve atlas and then hit save. Now if I take the output of my curve and I plug it into my missive and I hit save, I can see nothing's happened because we haven't adjusted anything on the curve. The light is falling in a gradient from white to black. So let's go into our curve and let's begin to affect some of the colors. If we right click, we can add a key to the independent vectors and we can assign colors. I can see that if I add vertical lines in the graph, I can create rather rigid color bands that are going to be reminiscent of a graphic lighting effect. Now when I look in my scene, I can see how the colors are falling on my character. The other thing that I can do in this material is I can underlay the base color underneath the lighting. The way I can do that is if I drag from the color of the base color scene texture material expression and I take a component mask and I include the red, green, and blue channels, and then I add a multiply, and I multiply the curve on my light mask by the base color, and I plug the result, I can see I begin to get the base color showing through where there are lighter values. Let's go back into our curve, and let's take these really dark values and let's brighten them a little bit, and we'll begin to see we get some of the base color coming back through. These colors can be adjusted to your heart's content to fulfill any aesthetic look that you would like to get on your lights regarding a banded effect. To further illustrate what's happening, let's hit G to come out of game mode, and if we select our point light that we created and we move it about, we can see on the mannequin how our light bands are falling to create a graphic effect. So now let's jump over into our sequencer view, lock our camera, hit G to enter game mode, and once again we can see the halo that's happening around our character from our light band post-process material because our blendable location is set to before tone mapping and not before translucency. So let's go into our post-process material, select the root, and move the blendable location to before translucency and save. And now we see that the effect lays underneath our depth of field. We now have a procedural gradient that's defining how our light is banded as it transitions from light to dark. This gradient can be adjusted to be any set of colors we want. In the next modules of this course, we'll examine how to use a post-process material to create a painterly effect.